Hello, this is a short video presentation on autism spectrum disorder. This is a presentation on what the disorder has as symptoms and ways to help combat this disorder in a classroom setting from a teacher perspective, what the teacher can do to help a student who has autism. First, the symptoms of autism disorder may include someone being overly focused on certain objects. They may have trouble with eye contact, and they fail to engage in classroom participation. They also have a degree to a lack of social communication. They have trouble with social communications and social atmospheres. This can translate to if you're doing a group project or if you're separating the classroom into different groups. Someone with autism spectrum disorder may have a very hard time communicating in groups, doing group projects, doing group work, even just talking with their peers. They may even isolate themselves because they have such a hard time communicating with others. You can also see how they have an insistence of sameness of activities and surroundings. They might have repetitive behaviors where they might even engage in things of self-harm nature. Sometimes they may have sensory overload where they might start flapping their arms, they might start hitting themselves, and they might start verbally expressing discomfort. These sensory overloads can be visual, they can be auditory, and they can be smells. So when a student with autism spectrum disorder may walk into the lunchroom, they might be so overwhelmed by certain smells that it can trigger an autism episode, an emotional outburst. If you're presenting a video to your classroom, the sudden beginning of the video, the sudden burst of sound that happens when you press play can be very upsetting for them. They have social impairment, they have communication difficulties, they repeat behaviors. I would say this is a spectrum disorder with social instances, with learning disabilities. It's all on a spectrum, so it can be very mild, it can be very severe. That's what we see at the beginning of this PowerPoint with the different types of autism spectrum disorder. Now, as a teacher in a classroom, the best thing we can always do for our students is to listen to them and to reach out to them and see what they need and have open and honest communication. And treat students as individuals, treat them as on a case-by-case basis. Don't treat every student with like the same expectations, and don't compare them to one another, because every student's an individual, and every individual has different needs that they need to get by with their education. With this being said, it's important to avoid sensory overload for students with autism spectrum disorder. Avoid fluorescent lights. Avoid smells that may seem very much there. Avoid loud noises or sudden noises. Use cool, calm colors in the classroom. This can also go into decorating your classroom with very cool, calm colors to have a more relaxing atmosphere. It's also important for teachers to use visuals. Some students are visual learners, and this very much goes into students with autism spectrum disorder. Sometimes they need a visual representation to fully understand an assignment. They can't just go off of listening to your directions. It's also important to be predictable. Don't be sudden. Be very predictable, because you don't want to trigger an unsudden change in the student's perception, which can trigger their autism. It's also important to keep language very concrete. Sometimes students can't really understand things like sarcasm or figurative language, metaphors, It's important to keep language very concrete and direct, because you don't want to have any holes in your speech for students not to understand what you're expecting of them. It's also very important to teach social skills, and this goes into teaching the correct social skills in your classroom procedures and what you expect from your students. You expect them to treat others the way you want to be treated, not talk when someone else is talking, basic social skills that have mutual respect in the classroom. And last but not least, it's important to treat students as individuals. Like I said earlier, celebrate their success, how they can succeed, and don't compare another student's success to another student's success, because everyone's a special learner, and it's important to treat students as individuals. And this is very helpful for students in their success, and to make sure that everyone can succeed with their deck of cards, with their individual deck of cards. Some students come from different backgrounds, and it's important that we accommodate them so they can succeed just the same as every other student. And that is what I have on autism spectrum disorder. Thank you.